Hello, welcome to Book Talk. This is your host, Anthony Moirore. At Book Talk, we always have a guest who is coming to tell us about his book or her book. And today we have a special guest who has had some experiences that will keep you glued to the screen or to the speaker to listen to the experiences that he's had. And he's going to tell us about chasing life. That's the book he's written. But I'm not going to talk much about that. I'm just going to introduce the guest. But before I do, I would like to remind you that our Book Talk podcast is available on all the podcast platforms, Google Podcast, Audible, iTunes. Whatever you choose, just search for Book Talk at Book Place and you'll get it. Go listen to all the episodes past and all the episodes that are going to come and this episode once it's through. So now, without taking more time, I'm introducing to you Robert Pardi. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Hey, Anthony. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. And we are glad to hear about chasing life. And before we go to that, would like to know who is this Robert who's come on to our episode today. Please tell us where you are born, where you have grown, and a bit of that. Then we'll go into chasing life.
Sure. So I'm actually speaking to you from Italy.
Okay.
And I'm speaking to you from the small Italian village my family actually comes from. But we're talking great grandparents.
Okay.
So I'm from New York. I was born in New York City.
Yeah.
And I'm an ex-investment banker, actually. So I worked on Wall Street. Then I worked in Abu Dhabi and Dubai.
Mm-hmm.
But because of life circumstances, life events, which are in the book Chasing Life,
Okay.
I decided to change my life and chase life, let's say,
Okay.
and move to Italy to follow a dream. I also believed that the life experiences that I had only had value if I shared them.
Uh-huh.
So during COVID, I became a life coach, but during COVID, I decided to write Chasing Life. And then I wrote another book that followed Chasing Life.
Oh, wonderful. And it's good to hear a good story about COVID. Now, we've always had negative stories, and sorry to all those who have lost their loved ones. Sorry to those who have been through
Sure.
bad experiences through COVID. But we have some good stories that comes from COVID situation. Now, Robert wrote a book, and we are glad that you wrote it to share with us your life experiences that we are going to just get a glimpse of. So that you leave us a chance to go and buy the book and read it all.
Okay.
So let's dive into chasing life. What is chasing life?
Sure. First, I did want to. I think it's very great that you pointed out something about COVID as well. Being a life coach, I could tell you I worked with a lot of people that decided to change their life during COVID. So it was a big wake up call for everybody. But what is chasing life? So I basically lived, let's say, in a type of boot camp, a really good boot camp, but a boot camp. I married the most amazing woman that I know I will ever meet in my life. I met her. She was 17. I was 19. We fell in love. We got married very, very young. And we both had this desire to experience life, to really live it to its utmost.
Like all of us.
Like all, exactly, right? Which is what sort of books do. They stimulate you, right? So, she wanted to become a doctor. I was pursuing investments. We were very dedicated. When she decided to do an MD, PhD. And while she was in the middle of that, I was offered a job in Abu Dhabi. And we discussed it, and we were married 7 years by that point. And we both said, this is an amazing experience. Let's do it. So I go to Abu Dhabi. She finishes her PhD and she decides to take a year off. of school before finishing the MD to come live
Mhm.
with me in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
Well, to live in Abu Dhabi, everyone has to do a um, medical screening, basically.
Okay.
And she was 30 years old. She was just about to turn 31.
Uh-huh.
And in the medical screening, they found that she had late stage breast cancer.
Mm.
And that set us on a path that was extremely unusual. My wife was a very strong, strong woman and had very strong beliefs, as I have very strong beliefs. And one of our beliefs were to always do your best. And
Mm-hmm.
so she said to me, she said, Robert, look, I know enough of medicine now to be dangerous to myself. So
Uh-huh.
I don't want to know anything about my disease. I need you to handle everything.
Oh,
And so I became the surrogate for her,
okay.
um, which allowed her to pursue her dreams despite all the chemotherapy, radiation, the surgeries. And she, in the course of 11 years, she was under chemotherapy or under treatment for 11 years. She became the founding director of palliative care at New York Hospital
Mm-hmm.
while having metastatic breast cancer,
Mm-hmm.
and passed away shortly after that, basically.
Oh,
But the
sorry
idea of
that.
chasing life
Mm-hmm.
was, we realized, and it was a philosophy actually we really had. So it's,
Mm.
I can't say that cancer changed our philosophy. It's just cancer augmented it, like
Yeah.
it put it into full motion, right? Because all of a
Uh-huh.
sudden you realize you let go of a lot of the unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
Once you're facing end of life,
Mm-hmm.
you realize how much BS we carry around with us that we don't need.
Mm-hmm.
So what wound up happening in that is we realized life is not measured by time.
Yeah.
I know a lot of 85-year-old people that are very unhappy. Life, the real measurement of life is
Mm-hmm.
joy. And that's why if you look at the cover of my book, it's a candy apple. It's
Okay.
it's a caramel apple. What does a caramel apple have to do with a woman that's dying of breast cancer? It has to do with the fact that you find the small moments. And really, if you think about it, we only live a quality life, an extraordinary life, when we value the ordinary moments.
Ah.
Because our life takes place in ordinary moments. Our life does not take place in an Instagram world of everything being perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It takes place in a smile, in a laugh, in an embrace, in a hug, in all these different things. So that's what chasing life was all about. It's to stop chasing time, stop
Mm.
thinking about when I'm a certain age or when I get to a certain, we all have to have goals, of course,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
it's about filling your days with joy, filling your moments with joy. And we don't know how to do that anymore today
Mm-hmm.
because we relinquish joy so we could pursue big careers, and we become very serious as adults, and we forget what it's like to
Mm.
really feel joy. If
Yeah,
I'm sure your listeners, because 99.99% of the world will stop and look at a rainbow,
yeah,
and that one moment you're captured by the rainbow, that's joy.
yeah, yeah.
And so the thing is, joy is always there, even in an 11-year battle of breast cancer. You just
Mm.
have to learn how to lean into the joy.
No, and it's good to hear that from Robert, who's had that experience for 11 years, taking care of someone who's going through all that goes with the breast cancer.
Yeah.
Now, when we mentioned about COVID and the people who have lost lives, the experiences that they've had, even those who have been in hospital, in ICU and come
Yeah.
out, and the experiences that Robert had for 11 years. Now, once shared with those people who may not have gone through, they can always be ready, or rather, they can face the coming challenges in a better way, and they can be able to handle. Now, Robert tells us that there is always joy, even in the grim of all the other things going on in life, and even in losing someone. Now, we would not expect, or like many people would not expect, that someone who's lost a close person could be smiling like you're smiling. You have a beautiful smile, by the way.
Thanks.
Now, and it's good. And the lessons that you took from it, the lessons that you've taken from the COVID experiences that you've had close to you, uh, it's good to share it with other people so that we can always be ready to. And we thank you. At this point, we thank you for writing this book, which we are going to find out more
Well,
about, and which we are going to read. Now, at this point, let me, even before we proceed, thank all those people who are watching us or listening to us, the recorded version of this. We have Christina Antoniathu, who says, uh, that's awesome. Thank you, Christina. And she says, so many truths in here. Thanks for reminding. So Christina thanks you for reminding us this.
well,
And this is just the beginning, and I know we have so much ahead of us. Let's keep on moving. So, if I may ask, uh, the 11 years you're talking about, I mean, I cannot imagine the strength that was required of you. Where did you find, now, because now we know you got it, but where did you find that strength to keep going for 11 years?
wow, that's a great question. And talking about it now, it looks like everything was great. But I can tell you, there were many times that I broke down, you know, by myself, so my wife couldn't see it,
Yeah.
or I felt very overwhelmed. But there are so many different things I could bring up.
Uh-huh.
I'll be perfectly honest that I lived an experience as a child that taught me a lot about strength and taught me a lot about resilience.
Yeah.
And that was because I had an abusive alcoholic father.
Uh-huh.
And so I had to learn how to navigate uncertainty. I didn't know if I was going to get beat. I didn't know if he would be drunk. So many different things. So I learned about that uncertainty. But what I realized is that resilience has been marketed that it's only for a select number of people, but
Uh-huh.
we're all resilient. You can
Yeah.
think about like Luke and the Force and Star Wars. We all have this resilience in us. When our back is against a wall,
Mm-hmm.
we show up.
Yeah.
When you've been there, we've all been there. We say, I can't take one more thing, but we do.
Uh-huh.
That's resilience. We just have to learn to access it on demand.
Yeah.
And so while this was going on with my wife, and I was the one that knew all the information, and she didn't. The only thing she had to know is at one point in time we had to remove part of her liver, so I had to explain to her what was going on. But
Okay.
other than that, she didn't know where it had spread. She didn't know the number of lymph nodes. She didn't know a lot of things about her disease. So I had
Uh-huh.
to. It was the doctors that told me, she's closer to death.
Uh-huh.
She's, now the cancer is now in her lungs. But I realized what purpose really is. And that's where I found my strength.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's another word. When we hear purpose, we think we have to be a Greta saving the environment. And that's not purpose at all.
Mm-hmm.
Purpose is when your passion comes in alignment with your values. But the key is you want to give the results away.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to give the support to my wife because of the passion and to watch her grow. You know, Caregiving is very interesting because parents are caregivers,
Yeah.
but there's hope, there's positivity.
Yeah.
When you're a caregiver and someone's approaching death, it feels very heavy, but the same joy is there. It's the joy of supporting someone.
Uh-huh.
It's not fixing. So that's where I found a lot of the strength was to understand the purpose behind it.
Uh-huh.
That whatever I was carrying, and I trust me, I had Superman complex, like, it was absolutely crazy. I had dreams where I was trying to fly and I would keep hitting the ground because I couldn't get off the ground,
Uh-huh.
um, because I wanted to save her. And then I realized that's a losing battle.
Uh-huh.
I can't save her, but I can make today really, really good.
Oh.
And that's where the strength came from, because that's what was under my control. You know, I talk about this often. This idea of, my wife passing away, or death in general. The ancient Chinese used a calendar of 72 seasons. to
Okay.
remind us that everything changes.
Ah.
If we really truly accept that inside of us,
Uh-huh.
we'll stop trying to control what we can't. And all that energy comes back to us to control what we can.
Mm.
That's strength. That's true strength.
Yeah. And does it go with this one that says that the reason that our calendars are written in numbers instead of letters is to always remind us that our days are numbered. Now, once you remember your days are numbered, you won't be so obsessed with the life that you're living, and you be careful about the way you're living, and you'll have the strength to keep on moving, knowing that every other person has his days numbered.
100, a friend of mine, she wrote a book called the hospice, the hospice doctor's widow,
Yeah.
because her husband, who was a doctor, passed away.
Mm.
And there was a little passage in her book that talks about precious time.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment you're confronted with death, you realize how precious time is.
Mm-hmm.
But time is precious regardless of knowing about death or not. We
Yeah.
have to treat it preciously.
Yeah,
It's the
sure.
one thing, it's non-renewable. It's each moment that passes by is a moment lost. The
Yeah.
idea of this too shall pass. We use that as a saying when bad things happen.
Uh,
But that's life. Everything passes,
everything.
every moment passes. So while that's a very hard concept to understand, if
Mm.
we back it up, more for me, the original strength I found was knowing that I was giving my wife a gift,
Uh-huh.
and that what was under my control was the day, the moment,
Mm.
not the future.
Mm-hmm.
And then that helps you understand impermanence, that everything is changing anyway. So we should plan for the future. Of course, we must, right?
Okay.
Because we're trying to craft a life.
Yeah.
But the fact is that it's now that's under our control.
Yeah.
And we learned so that's why I became a life coach. We
Mm.
learned so much about the unnecessary stresses, worries, all these things that we carry with us, and we don't need to burden ourselves with a lot of those things.
Mm.
The weather people can't predict the weather. What makes us think that we can predict our life, right? Like,
Yeah.
so and they have all that equipment.
Mm. Now, if I may ask at this point, because you've just, I mean, we are talking about the experiences, but we want to know, because we want to read that book. What's the
Sure.
format of that book? What's the way that the stories have been
Oh,
told?
of course.
What are we
So
going?
it's a love story.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. It is a love story of how my wife, uh, let's say my wife evolved and I awakened during
Okay.
the whole process.
Your
But
wife
it's
evolved and you awakened.
and I awakened.
Okay.
Um, but it is learning about us and how we approached life, how
Okay.
we looked for the positives, and how we looked for life to be an experience.
Uh-huh.
Even even the horrible stuff, there's still an experience. And the question that's underlying the book, it's not in the book, but it's about the book,
Yeah.
is if you're happy with your life and who you are, you have to give thanks for everything in your life, even the
Uh-huh.
bad things.
Uh-huh.
That's what the story is about. Chasing life is to embrace it,
Okay.
to live it regardless of adversity.
Hmm. And I'm curious. It's not
Sure.
often I ask this question in the book talk, but I'm curious to just hear a few sentences from the book, if you can give us the pleasure of listening to you reading it.
Oh, sure. I've never done that, so that's pretty cool. I
Any
don't know.
page that you would like us to hear from. But I
Um, yeah. Wow. Okay. So yeah. Wow.
mm,
This. There's so much that I would like to share. She was actually on the Oprah Winfrey show way
Oh,
back
okay.
when she graduated. But if I go through and I try to find all of that, it would just be too difficult. So I,
Yeah, I should have
yeah, no,
told you before, but anyway, we
no,
are
no,
going
no.
to
I
hear
think
what
you
comes out just
you
like
know um what I just found this page. So my wife was diagnosed in Dubai, and so basically we were there, and they were examining the lump,
that. Okay,
and you know I'll just explain a little bit of what happened.
okay.
So they found the lump. They decided to do a needle biopsy,
Uh-huh.
um, and then when they got the results back, we found out that she had cancer, and they called me
Yeah.
because she didn't have a phone.
Uh-huh.
So so I'll just talk about. So this is from the doctor.
Okay.
Mr. Pardi, your wife's test came back. He said, and then he paused. I'm afraid the news is not very good.
Uh-huh.
She has cancer, I whispered, not wanting to hear the words come out of my mouth, but I whispered them anyway.
Okay.
Yes, he said, and we recommend removal of the tumor as soon as possible. I stopped breathing, and my mind careened into the bottomless pit, a
Uh-huh.
bottomless black pit, cancer, death. She's going to die.
Uh-huh.
The doctor was saying, Mr. Pardi, are you there? Are you there? Are you there? Yes, I managed to answer. My God, I can't. No, I won't think this way. It's just we'll need to figure some things out. Of course, he said, but get back to me as soon as possible. This is extremely dangerous.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
so that's sort of how it all started, basically.
Uh, okay.
Was
And I would like to ask, yes, thank you for that reading.
You're
And yeah, people should go and get it and read the whole story. And when you are going through that experience of taking care of your life, being a caregiver, uh, and you talked about why you drew your strength from the experiences that you had when you were growing up. But I want to imagine that you had a support system, like let's say you have friends or family that assisted you through it.
Wow, that's a good question, and the answer is going to be shocking. So I didn't.
You didn't?
I didn't, and the reason I didn't was because my wife was a pretty astute woman, and I was afraid that if I ever spoke to my friends or my family about what was happening,
Ah,
and they looked at her, and if they would have just looked at that, like, that sad sort of look for a moment, she could have picked up on that and said, Robert, is there something I need to know? Is everything okay? Are you lying to me? Of course, I was lying to her because I didn't, it was not necessary for her to know the cancer was spreading because she was still living a good quality of life. So as
okay.
long as her physical ability didn't change, I believed that it was the best option just to let her believe that, we're still dealing with a localized malignancy.
Mm,
Um, so I didn't share with my friends and family.
mm,
Now I did. I'm not a religious person. I'm
okay.
very spiritual, but I did grow up Catholic, and
Okay.
so I did many times go and sit in a church and one or two times speak to the priest that was there.
Mm,
But for the most part, it was the support really came from seeing how well she was doing.
uh-huh.
I have to say that seeing her play with the dog or laugh watching Friends, or I just thought, what, this is not about me.
Yeah.
And I had to make those tough decisions. But no, for the most part, when I spoke to my friends and family and stuff, I was, everything's okay. We're still holding our own. and that was it. So
Then you must be a really strong man who's gone all through that by yourself and
well,
for 11 years. Many people give up in life. I mean, earlier on, and if they don't give up at the end, they give up somewhere in the middle and call people to say, "Hi, this is what is going on. You come and take it over from me. I'm done." But to have gone through 11 years and come out smiling, that's some strength that we admire.
well, thanks. One thing, like I said, seeing my wife smile, seeing my wife flourish, seeing my
Yeah.
wife achieve her dreams, um, that was so rewarding that I think that helped me. That continued to fuel me. The smile now, let's say, is that I talk all the time. I'm beautifully scarred by
Okay.
having loved and cared for my wife.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's not an ugly scar that burns. It's a beautiful scar that I know she and I achieved something that was extraordinary, and we had a connection that was um, exists even today. So
And that's something new that we've had today. Beautifully scarred. Now, and I come to think of it, am I beautifully scarred? When I look back and I see the challenges that I've gone through, the hurts that I have received along the way, did I become beautifully scarred? I think you have a next book there. Beautifully
maybe let's put it this way.
scarred.
Like I have the privilege of living in Italy, right? And
Yeah.
so I've gotten to see beautiful handmade mosaics from the Roman times.
Uh-huh.
And if you look at the pieces that are in a handmade mosaic, they were
Yeah.
cut by hand, so they're
Yeah.
not perfect. They're
Hmm.
jagged, they're rigid, they're chipped, but together it's beautiful. It's the
Yeah.
imperfections that create the depth, which create the beauty of the mosaic. So if we think of our lives as a mosaic, all those hard times we've been through, we can think of them, they're just imperfections that are creating depth to the beauty of our own personal mosaic.
Uh-huh. And I hope every one of us looked at it that way. I mean, that
Well,
like,
that's what I hope chasing life does. Chasing life,
and you'll be
people that
glad.
have,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
people that have read the book that have said,
Hmm.
um, and they've sent me some beautiful, beautiful comments that it's opened them up to living life.
Mm.
We can't wait for life to be perfect, and um, there's so much about living life as it is right now. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean accepting. It doesn't mean not attempting to make it better or change direction. But right now you're alive. Life is here until it's not. That's what my journey with my wife told me, right?
Uh-huh.
It taught me you are alive until your last breath. So
Mm.
live it, even when it's not great. You think about Viktor Frankl wrote the book A Man's Search for Meaning, and he's a Holocaust survivor. And he talked about between, let's say, stimulus and response, there's this space for us to determine how we want to show up.
Uh-huh.
So the question is for everyone that's listening, do you want to be used by life or do you want to use life?
Hmm. That's a good
That's
question.
that's the question.
That's a good one. Do you want to be used by life or do you want to use life?
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for reminding us that each and every one of us are resilient enough, and each and every one of us can live life to the full using life. I mean, drawing those positive aspects from every experience that we have had and looking at it as uh, a beautiful experience, even the scars in there.
Yeah.
Beautifully scarred. That's gonna live with me for the rest of my life.
Well, I'm really happy to hear that. I'm really
Yeah.
happy to hear that.
Yeah. So at this point, maybe we'd like to tell someone who's listening where they can find this book, Chasing Life.
Oh, sure. They could just go to Amazon and put
Hmm.
Chasing Life.
Yeah.
They should put my last name, so Chasing Life Pardi, Pardi, because there's a very famous CNN anchor that wrote a book, Chasing Life, as well. So um, we have to remember it's the one with the apple. Okay. Or
Okay.
they could go to the website chasinglifethebook.com.
Chasinglifethebook.com. Wow, that's good. So we are very glad that you've been here with us and shared those insights from Chasing Life and reminding someone to go after life, not give up, just be there because they've got the resilience in themselves just to throw it
100%.
out from themselves and live life to the full.
Yeah.
And before we go, as always at Book Talk, I'd like to ask someone to give us a few words to always remember, even as we continue to live this beautiful life.
Oh, 100%. What I will say, it's
Yeah.
the sort of the tagline I use for the book.
Mm-hmm.
We only live an extraordinary life when we value the ordinary moments.
Mm. Okay. We only live
Live an
an
extraordinary
extraordinary
life
life once
when
we value
value
the
the ordinary
ordinary
moment.
moments. And that's beautiful too. Beautiful too. And once we keep on chasing life, and yes, we have also another comment from a Facebook user that's Mr. John Kafuenyaga, who says, "Oh yes, beautifully scarred. Taking good care of your terminal ill wife was very healthy. Congrats." That's John.
Thank
He's
you.
congratulating you for that sacrifice. Can I call it sacrifice, or you give us a better word?
No, I don't see it as a sacrifice. If anything, I think it was an investment in our lives together.
I guessed that. I guessed you would not use the word sacrifice in that. And we should all remember that whatever we have before us, any commitment, any responsibility that has been given unto us, we should think in Robert's terms as investments and not sacrifices.
100%. Yes.
That's my call. That's my my opinion that we should think at it as an investment. So once again, would like to really thank you and anything in the book, not the words that you've told us, anything in the book that you've just like us to go read, or is it the one that you've mentioned about the interview with Oprah? It's in the book.
It's in the book.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was really before the internet, so you can't find the interview online. But
Okay.
it's really sweet because she and Oprah hug, and I cried like a baby. I cried like a baby when my wife came out on the stage. I it was one of the most amazing moments of my life.
Yeah, I can imagine. And we are going to get it from the book. So
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Oh,
And we
thank you.
appreciate you taking your time with us to walk us through the book, or give us an idea of how what's inside the book. So we are going to get it. And at this point, I also want to remind or remember to thank each and every person who's been with us through the live, and those who are going to listen to the recorded version. We also thank you very much. Remember to share this with your friends and relatives and family, and let's keep on chasing life, and let's live beautifully even when we are going through challenges. We can always draw something positive out of every activity or anything that we are going through in life. You can run from Robert Pardi, Chasing Life. Go get the
Thank you
book.
very much, Anthony. Beautifully
Thank
said.
you. Bye. And
Take care, everybody.
okay, bye for now.